California, the land of sunshine, tech billionaires, and Hollywood dreams. But there's another side to the Golden State that doesn't make it into the postcards. Right now, the median home price sits at over $773,000. That's more than double the national average. And if you think renting is the solution, think again. The average apartment will cost you $2,400 a month, and that's before utilities, food, or anything else. So what's driving these insane costs? Why does it feel like California is pricing out everyone except the ultra-wealthy? The answer is more complicated than you might think, and some of the reasons go back decades. Here's the reality. California needs 3.5 million more housing units just to meet current demand. Let that sink in. 3.5 million homes that don't exist. And it's not like people haven't noticed. Everyone from tech workers to teachers is feeling the squeeze. The problem is building those homes isn't as simple as it sounds. More than half of California's zoned land is reserved exclusively for single-family homes. Meanwhile, only a quarter is designated for apartments and multifamily housing. This might sound like a boring zoning issue, but it's actually the heart of the problem. When cities refuse to allow denser housing, supply stays artificially low. And when supply is low, prices go through the roof. But here's where it gets interesting. Even when developers want to build, they face a maze of regulations that can take years to navigate. In San Francisco, the permitting process for a typical apartment building took 630 days as of 2022. That's almost 2 years just to get approval to start construction. And during that time, costs keep rising, interest rates fluctuate, and projects get canceled. The numbers tell a disturbing story. Between 2018 and 2021, less than 1% of properties that could legally be developed actually got permits. Think about that. For every 100 lots where apartments could be built, only one actually moved forward. The rest got stuck in bureaucratic quicksand or killed off by opposition from neighbors who didn't want change.
And this isn't just inconvenient. McKinsey calculated that California's housing shortage costs the state's economy between $143 and $233 billion every single year. That's $85 billion in lost construction jobs, $53 billion in reduced consumer spending, and billions more spent managing the consequences. A Nobel Prize-winning economist ran the numbers and found something shocking. If California just rolled back its housing regulations to what they were in 1980, the state's economy would grow by $400 billion. That's a 14% boost to the entire GDP just from letting people build homes. But nobody wants to be the one to approve new construction, because the people who already own homes have every reason to keep things exactly as they are. To understand why, we need to go back to June 6, 1978. That's when California voters passed Proposition 13, and it changed everything. The vote wasn't even close. It won by nearly 2-1, with people excited about a law that promised to protect homeowners from skyrocketing property taxes. Before Prop 13, property taxes were based on current market values. If your neighbors sold their house for a fortune, your taxes could jump overnight, even though you hadn't moved. People who'd lived in the same house for decades were getting priced out by tax bills they couldn't afford. So Prop 13 seemed like a lifesaver. It rolled property values back to 1975 levels, capped the tax rate at 1%, and limited annual increases to just 2%. Properties would only get reassessed when they sold or underwent major renovations. Sounds reasonable, right? Here's what actually happened. County property tax revenues got cut in half almost immediately, dropping from $10.3 billion to just $5 billion in 1 year. But the real damage was more subtle. Let's say you bought a house in 1980 for $100,000. Today, that house might be worth $1.5 million, but your property taxes are still based on that original price, adjusted by 2% per year. You might be paying $1,350 annually. Now imagine your neighbor buys the identical house next door today. They're paying $7,500 in property taxes. Same house, same street, same city services, but one person pays 5 times more than the other.
This creates what economists call a lock-in effect.
If you're paying dirt cheap property taxes because you bought your house 40 years ago, why would you ever move? Why would you downsize when your kids move out? Moving means losing that sweetheart tax deal forever. Studies found that the average California homeowner stayed in their house an extra year because of Prop 13. That might not sound like much, but multiply it across millions of homeowners, and you've got a massive reduction in housing turnover. Homes that should be on the market, available for young families or new workers, just sit there, locked up by people who can't afford to leave. And here's the kicker. Nearly 75% of the tax breaks from Prop 13 went to commercial property owners, not regular homeowners. Big businesses can keep the same low tax assessment for decades, while new companies and residents pay full price. It's estimated that this law has cost California over $1 trillion in lost revenue since 1978. Cities and counties had to find that money somewhere, so they shifted to sales taxes and hotel taxes. Suddenly, municipalities had a huge incentive to approve shopping malls and hotels instead of housing. Retail brings in sales tax revenue. Hotels bring in tourist taxes. But housing? Housing just brings people who need services like schools and roads without generating much tax revenue to pay for them. This brings us to something urban planners call NIMBYism, not in my backyard. When someone proposes building an apartment complex or even just converting a single-family home into a duplex, existing residents show up to city council meetings to shut it down. They'll cite concerns about traffic, parking, neighborhood character, or environmental impact. And thanks to California's regulations, they usually win. California has something called CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. It was designed to protect the environment, and that's important. But it's also been weaponized to block housing projects. Opponents can file lawsuits that drag out for years, making developments so expensive that builders just give up. The system actively rewards people for blocking construction, and it's destroying the state's economy while pricing out the next generation entirely.
But housing is just one piece of the puzzle. California also has the highest state income tax in the nation, topping out at 13.3% for high earners. That's more than double what people pay in states like Texas or Florida, which have no state income tax at all. The tax structure has 9 progressive brackets, starting at 1% and climbing to 12.3%, with an additional 1% mental health surcharge on income over $1 million. A software engineer making $300,000 in California pays almost $30,000 in state income tax alone. That same engineer in Texas or Florida pays nothing. Over a decade, that's $300,000 that could have gone into savings, retirement, or buying a house. The cost of staying in California adds up fast. Then there's gas. As of late June 2025, Californians were paying an average of $4.62 per gallon, while the rest of the country paid around $3.20. Why the massive difference? California has the highest gas tax in the nation at over 60 cents per gallon. Add in the federal tax of 18 cents, state sales tax of about 10 cents, and a 2-cent underground storage tank fee, and you're looking at 90 cents per gallon in taxes alone. But that's not even the expensive part. Environmental compliance costs add another 27 to 54 cents per gallon. California's cap-and-trade program adds about 27 cents, and the low-carbon fuel standard chips in another 12 cents or more. The state is also geographically isolated from other refining centers. There are no pipelines across the Rocky Mountains, and California's unique fuel blend requirements mean most out-of-state refineries can't even sell here. And it's about to get worse. 2 major refineries, Phillips 66 in Los Angeles and Valero in Venice, are closing down. Together, they represent 21% of California's refining capacity. Experts predict this will add another 8 to 14 cents per gallon by the end of 2025. For the average driver, that's an extra $222 to $449 per year. And because of California's high income taxes, you'd need to earn $600 to $1,000 in pre-tax income just to break even on that extra cost. Here's something that sounds impossible. In California, a family of 4 needs to earn over $138,000 per year just to cover basic living expenses. Not luxuries, not vacations or nice cars, just rent, food, healthcare, childcare, and transportation. The median household income is around $100,000, which sounds great until you realize it's not enough. To qualify for a mortgage on a mid-tier California home, you need to make $221,000 annually. That's more than double the median income. Even for the cheapest tier of homes, you need $136,000. This explains why California's homeownership rate is just 55.3%, the second lowest in the nation after New York. And it's not just housing. Healthcare costs average over $10,000 per person annually. That's $40,000 for a family of 4. Childcare runs between $990 and $1,785 per month per child. If you've got 2 young kids, you could easily be spending $3,500 a month just for someone to watch them while you work. Utilities are 38% higher than the national average. A gallon of milk costs almost $5 in Los Angeles. A dozen eggs will set you back over $5.50. Studies show that more than 1 in 3 California households don't earn enough to meet their basic needs. And here's the most damning statistic. 97% of these struggling households have at least one adult working full-time. The problem isn't laziness. The system is fundamentally broken. People are leaving. In 2024 alone, California lost over 216,000 residents to other states. That's on top of the 239,000 who left the year before. Texas, Florida, Arizona, and Nevada are the top destinations. Why? Texas and Florida have no state income tax. Housing costs half as much in most of these places. Job markets are booming in cities like Austin and Phoenix. The state lost $24 billion in income in just 2022, the biggest loss in the nation. Between 2011 and 2021, California hemorrhaged $102 billion in adjusted gross income as people packed up and moved to cheaper states. Companies are following the people. Over 200 businesses have left California since 2019, and these aren't small startups. We're talking about Charles Schwab, Oracle, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, Chevron, Tesla, and SpaceX. Elon Musk moved Tesla's headquarters to Texas in 2021 and SpaceX in 2024. When asked why, business leaders cite regulations, the difficulty of finding skilled workers willing to relocate to California, and the overall cost of doing business. California is still growing overall, but only because of international immigration. In 2024 alone, the state gained 126,000 new residents from other countries. Without international immigration, California would be shrinking fast. The state has already lost 1 congressional seat after the 2020 census, and projections suggest it will lose 4 more after 2030. That's a massive shift in political power and federal funding.
The human cost of all this is impossible to ignore. California is home to 187,000 homeless people. That's nearly 1 in 4 homeless Americans living in a state that represents just 12% of the national population. California accounts for 49% of all unsheltered homeless people in the entire country, and 68% of California's homeless population sleeps on the streets rather than in shelters. In Los Angeles, 81% of homeless people are unsheltered. In San Jose, it's 83%. The root cause is obvious: housing costs. When a 1-bedroom apartment costs $2,400 a month and you're working full-time at $20 an hour, the math doesn't work. You're making about $3,200 a month before taxes. You can't spend $2,400 on rent and still eat or cover any other expenses. California has thrown money at the problem, but the results have been mixed. The state has 41 different homelessness programs spread across 9 different agencies. A 2024 audit found that only 2 of those programs could even be properly evaluated for cost effectiveness. Billions of dollars are being spent, but nobody can say for sure if it's actually helping. The state has tried to address some of these issues. Between 2017 and 2021, California passed 37 housing bills aimed at increasing supply. Laws now allow homeowners to convert single-family homes into duplexes and split their lots. Cities can upzone areas near transit without lengthy environmental reviews. The 2017 ADU law created over 20,000 accessory dwelling units, those small backyard apartments. These are steps in the right direction, but they haven't been enough. Proposition 13 remains untouchable. It's been called the third rail of California politics. Any politician who seriously proposes reforming it gets voted out.
California remains the most populous state, with nearly 40 million people. It has the world's fifth largest economy, bigger than India or the United Kingdom. The weather is incredible. The job opportunities in tech and entertainment are unmatched. The universities are world-class. But for an increasing number of people, those benefits just don't outweigh the costs anymore. Young people are graduating from college with degrees and good jobs, doing the math and realizing they'll never be able to buy a house. Families are deciding they'd rather raise their kids in Texas or Arizona, where a teacher's salary can actually buy a home with a backyard. The state is at a crossroads. It can continue down this path and watch its middle class disappear, leaving only the very wealthy and the very poor, or it can make fundamental changes to how housing is built, how property is taxed, and how costs are controlled. The question isn't whether California can afford to change, it's whether it can afford not to. Because right now, the California dream is becoming a California nightmare for everyone except those who got in decades ago or those wealthy enough not to care. And unless something changes soon, that divide is only going to get wider. California can either be a state for everyone or a gated community for the rich. Right now, it's rapidly becoming the latter, and the consequences of that choice will reshape American geography, politics, and culture for generations to come.